The carbon clock is ticking. Modelling by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change shows that to keep 1.5 alive, there remains a carbon budget of just 220 billion tonnes, which at current rates will be depleted in just 5 years' time. In the wine industry, the main cause of carbon emissions is the need for energy. And while more than 50% of a wine bottle's carbon footprint comes from packaging and distribution, energy in the winery is one of the areas that a winemaker can influence the most.
We are Famille Perrin. We are located in Châteauneuf-du-Pape, Rhône Valley, and maybe Provence.
Somos Trivento. Estamos en Mendoza, Argentina. Tenemos nuestra bodega en Maipú y tenemos viñedos en las principales regiones vitivinícolas de la provincia.
It's a family business operation. I think family is sustainability.
Nuestra filosofía de sustentabilidad es cultivar un futuro mejor.
The new winery of Beaucastel, it's not even a winery. It's first thing is a place where my grandmother has lived. So we used to go there every Sunday. It's a family village. So Beaucastel is an atmosphere before everything. Using the soil to make the winery, using the soil to make the place, the house, using the soil to create Beaucastel. If Beaucastel is falling down, the soil will come back to the soil.
We want to be the pebble that starts the avalanche. We are a relatively small winery, not tiny. I mean, 280 acres is not a little backyard hobby. But if we can show that ideas can be implemented, that they can result in better and better wines, that they can result in reasonable farming costs, and we can get other people following on this journey, that's really where it gets exciting.
Welcome to Wine Tutor TV. This is Sustainability Countdown to 2030.
The wineries are clearly a key part of any wine business, transforming their grapes into wine. And they tend to be places where there's high water usage, where we're dealing with the grapes themselves, but then the waste stream and how the waste stream is actually then recovered, how water that might be used for the purpose of cleaning a tank may then be recovered for the purpose of cleaning a floor in order to minimize waste. A winery is a big building with a lot of roof space, and we've seen people all over the world, and indeed in our own case, we have photovoltaic plants on top of our two main wineries generating the electricity, not just for the winery itself, but also for other parts of our business.
We're very focused on our resource use here, especially energy and water. A couple ways we are able to reduce energy use are by employing solar panels. We have about 13,000 square feet of our roof surface here at the winery covered with solar panels, which I believe is around 90% of our roof area. And so are able to generate the majority of the energy required for our production process by solar. We also employ a night air system in the wineries that allows us to cut down on energy used to cool our warehouses. So basically what we do is we harness the colder night air temperatures by funneling that air via a powerful fan system into our warehouses to cool down our tanks, to cool down our cased goods in the winery. That system is automated. It kicks on as soon as the temperature outside drops down below the temperature inside and stays on until the temperature rises again in the morning. Fortunately, in Northern California, we have quite large diurnal shifts between day and nighttime, so it's a method that we can employ during a good long part of the year. As far as water use, we try to cut down on wastewater. So we employ high pressure, low gallons per minute washing solutions to wash our barrels, to wash our tanks. To give you an idea, the old method that is a low pressure, high gallon per minute solution uses about 15 gallons per minute in water to clean a barrel, and we use, with our high pressure solution, about 2 gallons per minute. So we're cutting the water need way down to wash our barrels, which has made a big difference for us.
So the new building in Beaucastel, the first idea was in 2018. In fact, all the generation like to build a new winery, and our generation, the fifth generation, starting in 2018 to think about the new winery. And the idea was to build something that our grandchildren will be proud. Today, we are really proud and really impressed about our grandfather to be organic in the 70s, and our deal was to do the same thing for us, but in our winery. So we decided to do a contest in 2020, and after almost 1 year, we find an Indian architect called Bijoy Jain with Studio Mumbai, and with a French architect called Louis-Antoine Grégo from Studio Méditerranée. And this idea, when the architect come in our office, say, we're going to build Beaucastel just with the earth of Beaucastel. And that was kind of crazy and unique. And this idea was to say also, if you want to build a new winery and to be really perfect for eco winery, you have to don't have any truck come in and no truck come out. And that's the new project. We just do a big hole of 60 to 40 meters and 10 meters deep. We dig out all the earth, and we use this earth that you can see just by compressing, with no concrete, nothing. This idea was to say, to use the soil, the terroir, and put this terroir to the verticality. And in 50, 60, 100 years, if we have to destroy this winery, with the earth, go back to the earth, and we have nothing on the trash. And that was really the idea. So we do a level of 20 centimeters that we compress to 15 centimeters, and that give you all the building. And the second subject was to use the water. You know, in Châteauneuf-du-Pape, we have more than 130 days of Mistral, the wind was blowing from the north to the south. And this idea was to do a natural air conditioning. We do a big tank to collect all the rainfall. In fact, we have some big wind tower on the north part, and the wind go through the wind tower, directly go downstairs to the lake to take the freshness of the water from the ground. We know that the earth, it's at 12 to 14 degrees at 6-7 meters deep. And after, all the natural mistral, all the wind, blow directly in all the cellar and to refresh and bring the humidity in all the cellar. So that means that we're going to be completely efficiency with no electricity on air conditioning. Is that really a big deal for us? Mostly with the global warming, and after for sure the electricity, we're gonna have some solar panel that we're gonna use to bring electricity in all the cellar. And the water, the water that we collect, we're going to use also to wash all the floor, to the restroom, and all the facilities to the winery. So the old cellar, we included the new winery. We just do this new cellar just to age the old bottle of Beaucastel. You know, we every year we keep 10 to 15% of the bottle that we don't sell. We keep our secret in the bottle, and we like to age wine. In Châteauneuf-du-Pape, we have 13 different grapes, so it's a wine that you can age for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And here, in the food that you see, that's the main historically cellar of Beaucastel. And we age in food all the wine in the old cellar, and we can age the bottle in the new cellar. So the new winery, we just use the earth from the ground so that it was kind of free. The most difficult thing was the time to build all this cellar because it's almost 10,000 square meters of new cellar. This idea is to storage and to age almost 500,000 bottles in this cellar. The roof then can collect the rain. It's almost 7,000 square meters, so it's pretty long. And the total budget, it's around 10 to 12 million euros.
In 2019, we measured the full company carbon emissions. It was a very important task for us to understand where we were standing. And we have set a very ambitious objective to reduce it by 50% in 2030. We know that the main contributors to the carbon emissions are the glass bottle, so we are working very deeply on that aspect. As well as in the vineyard management, we have all our vineyards to regenerative farming, which promotes the native vegetation that is capturing the CO2 from the environment. So that is also very significant, as well as using green energy. So we are installing solar panels and photovoltaic panels in the winery.
If we talk about the lightweight bottle, after making our carbon print assessment, we saw that 98% of the carbon emissions are coming from Scope 3. So this is outside of our own production.
Para reducir la huella de carbono, hemos implementado un programa de eficiencia energética. Esto incluye mover el 100% de nuestras luces a tecnología LED, reducir el consumo de agua caliente y vapor, instalar aires acondicionados con tecnología inverter. Respecto a las emisiones de carbono, nuestro target es reducir un 50% nuestras emisiones para el año 2030. En términos de energía renovable, tenemos instalados 62 paneles solares que nos proveen de agua caliente para nuestros procesos. Recientemente hemos inaugurado un parque solar fotovoltaico para producir nuestra propia electricidad. Son 522 paneles que producen 572 megawatt hora de energía por año.
Uno de los recursos más importantes para el cuidado del medio ambiente y el cambio climático es el uso de la energía. Para esto tenemos dos programas importantes en la bodega, un programa de uso eficiente de energía en nuestras bodegas para maximizar el uso de este recurso, y contamos con la planta fotovoltaica más grande de la industria vitivinícola en Mendoza, con más de 900 paneles solares que producen energía limpia. La planta fotovoltaica nos provee el 10% del consumo de energía en nuestra bodega y el resto de la electricidad lo compensamos con compra de IREX. Otro de los pilares en el cuidado de los recursos en Trivento es el manejo de los residuos. Hoy Trivento recicla o composta el 97% de los residuos provenientes de la elaboración del vino, y nuestra meta para el 2030 es 0 residuo a vertedero.
So we're very excited about the floating solar panels that will make up 1 megawatt of our new 2 megawatt solar system. These panels are traditional solar photovoltaic panels, roughly 500 watts each, but instead of being ground mounted on an array on land, they're actually mounted on floating small boats. Each one is mounted on a floating boat on top of our unused agricultural pond area. So this 1 megawatt array does not take up an acre of our valuable vineyard land. We're using the tops of one of our agricultural ponds to float the array on. And that has several unique benefits that we're really excited about. For one, it prevents all of the sunlight that would normally hit the pond from reaching the pond waters, and that curbs the growth of algae in the pond and makes it so that we don't have to drain that pond and scrape out the dead algae every number of years. It reduces that timeline. So there's some maintenance benefits there.
Ja, wir haben in diesem Jahr auch eine 160 Kilowatt Peak Photovoltaikanlage auf das Dach bekommen, was mit unserem Eigenverbrauch von ca. 30% eine CO2-Einsparung von ungefähr 80 Tonnen CO2 pro Jahr zur Folge hat. Gemeinsam mit der Einsparung im Flaschenbereich und in der Photovoltaik können wir den CO2-Ausstoß durch relativ einfache Mittel 25 bis 30% reduzieren.
We tend to move more to photovoltaic rather than solar panels. Remember, the difference between that is photovoltaic is producing electricity, a solar panel will be heating water. And the reason for that is that hot water can be used in a number of different ways, but the usage of it's much less than the usage of electricity, which is not only more adaptable in the winery, it's also something that you can transmit and inject back into the grid and so on and so forth. And at our company, at this moment in time, we're just under 70% of our electrical needs are coming from 3 major photovoltaic plants that we have on top of our wineries. We will increase that. We will become 100% self-producing. And indeed, we're planning to install over 1 megawatt, which will allow some of our hotels to be 100% electricity usage from renewable sources.
Je pense que pour le vin, il sera difficile d'avoir dans le futur un packaging complet qui va permettre d'avoir un bilan carbone zéro. Aujourd'hui, on a certains fournisseurs qui commencent à développer des bouteilles comme ça, mais ça nécessite de ne pas utiliser de capsules, de mettre des bouchons très courts. Donc ce sera forcément pour des gammes de vins à consommation assez rapide et des gammes très ciblées environnement ou nature.
So the Porter Protocol, which was launched in 2018, was a really simple idea, and that is that the global wine industry can come together to actually share real case study examples of what individual companies are doing. It is my experience that the wine industry across the globe is doing a huge amount to mitigate climate action. Many of the people are keeping those examples to themselves. And through the Porter Protocol, through the solutions page that we have on the Porter Protocol, we've created a series of examples, real-life examples of what companies have actually done to help their business. Now, there are other pages on the Porter Protocol, like articles and discussions. We run conferences, we run web seminars, all of which are designed to help this issue, to help people converse, to help people share ideas, to help people have the confidence through understanding that some of the things have already been done before and that there are solutions out there. And the community that the Porter Protocol has created, fully available on the web, with all of the previous conversations, examples, all available, all recorded, all there as a resource that you can go to on every single topic related to climate change, and more importantly, what people are actually doing about it.
To achieve carbon neutral accreditation and the carbon neutral plus accreditation, there's a few steps. Firstly, we have our greenhouse gas emissions independently audited every year across scopes 1, 2, and 3. Our focus then is on what we can do to reduce those emissions. So there's a big focus on, particularly around how we transport wine. That's the key driver of our emissions, and therefore that's where the lion's share of our emissions lie. And then we also focus very heavily on our facilities here in London and our new bonded warehouse in Basingstoke, where we have a number of initiatives in place to reduce the impact of what we do. Once we've reduced emissions as far as we can, we then offset those emissions that we are unable to reduce, and we think it's very important to do that, given that transportation, for example, is on a very slow decarbonisation pathway, and therefore offsetting is the best available route to mitigate against those emissions at the current time. We also, when doing that though, are focused on making sure that those offsets are of the highest possible quality, so we know that they are making a clear positive contribution to mitigating our carbon. Our carbon neutral status means that we deliver from the winery gate to the customer's door in a carbon neutral manner. In the UK, we achieve this through a number of initiatives. One of those is the use of some electric vans in our fleet. One of those is a focus on strategic route planning. We've introduced software to allow us to minimize the fuel that we use, and we also use vans where they're not electric that meet very high efficiency standards for fuel usage. So that reduces the emissions, and then those emissions that we cannot reduce based on current technology, we offset using third-party verified high-quality offsets to mitigate those carbon emissions that we can't remove. The ways that we mitigate carbon emissions when transporting wine are split across the supply chain. So the most important, I think, in the amount of carbon saved is how we transport wine from the winery to the UK. But the principles are quite simple. We don't use air freight unless absolutely essential. The majority of the wine that we transport, we then seek to put into the most carbon efficient mode of transport possible. So where we can, we ship by rail, in preference to road or sea. We have a large volume of our wine from Italy that we ship by rail, for example, and that's grown 17% in the last year. And then where rail is not possible because the infrastructure does not exist, we try and transfer shipment by road to shipment by sea, which is a less carbon intensive form of transportation. So for example, over the last year, we've shipped 70% more wine from Spain by sea in preference to road because we know it is the more sustainable option.
I think farming and regenerative farming specifically is gonna be a key player in combating climate change. Farming can be a net emitter or a net sequester of carbon dioxide, and by reducing emissions and eventually sequestering more than we emit, it's going to make a huge effect overall weather patterns and climate.
We've taken carbon from the soil, we've put it into the atmosphere. There's too much in the atmosphere, maybe not enough in the soil. So in this regenerative organic approach to farming, we're really looking at essentially the magic of photosynthesis and how the plant life through air, light, and water can capture carbon, translate it into the soil through root exudates, root systems, and feeding the living soil life to maintain carbon in soil.
Wir alle wissen, dass die nächsten Jahre und Jahrzehnte das Thema Wasserverfügbarkeit ein großes Thema sein wird. Und wir suchen gerade nach Möglichkeiten, ohne jetzt große Bewässerungssysteme aufbauen zu müssen, wie wir die Böden fit machen für die Zukunft. Und eine gute Möglichkeit könnte dabei Pflanzenkohle sein. Pflanzenkohle wird unter sauerstoffarmen Bedingungen verbrannt. Dabei entsteht Energie in Form von Wärme, aber auch Elektrizität, aber eben auch Pflanzenkohle selbst. Eine Tonne Pflanzenkohle kann ungefähr 3 Tonnen CO2 speichern, aber ungefähr auch 5000 Liter Wasser, was für uns in Zukunft sehr, sehr wichtig sein wird, die Böden auf diese Art und Weise fit zu machen.
Für die Herstellung von Pflanzenkohle nutzen wir eigene Rebstöcke aus Altanlagen, lassen diese schreddern und karbonisieren. Die Kohle laden wir hier mit unseren eigenen Komposten auf und bringen sie in die Weinberge aus. Durch die schadstoffarme Karbonisierung, sprich Herstellung von Rohkohle, die wir hier dann aufladen, wird CO2 nachhaltig im Boden gespeichert. Eine Tonne Kohle speichert 3 Tonnen CO2 nachhaltig in unserer Erde.
I'm often asked the question of why do we continue to foot tread, given that there are plenty of other ways to make port. And indeed, we've been able to pioneer the use of pistons, which has produced very similar results. And that's great for making your reserve ports, your bin 27s, and to a certain extent for your LBVs, and certainly some of the primary material required for aged tawnies, which through the oxidative aging process will obviously be less impacted. But vintage port, we believe, is still foot trodden. We still tread every grape that we grow. The reason for that is a philosophy, as much as anything else, is that it is the best way, in our view, to still make port. How do we justify that? How do we look at that? We believe it makes about 1.5% difference. So if you're going to be scoring points, so the difference clearly between a wine getting 97 or 98.5. Now the reality, of course, is that for many consumers they can't necessarily taste that difference. It's professional tasters that can get that additional layer of intensity, the additional layer of structure that is coming from the foot treading. The reason from our perspective is that in making any port, we would look at it as a series of processes. And if you break port down, and there's probably 21, 22 different processes. And that's right the way through viticulture, how you treat the vines, how you pick, making sure that the picking disciplines, in the winery, and then obviously later on in the blending room, and so on and so forth. And if each of these processes can be improved, even by 1 or 2%, then obviously it makes a huge difference in the end. And we know from our empirical tests that foot treading is producing an extra 1.5% of quality. That is the reason we continue to do it, because to not do so would be in some way compromising with what we're trying to do with our very finest ports, our vintage ports.
If the Master of Wine theory exam could be summed up in just 2 words, it would be critical analysis. Or, in just 1 word, tell us the why. Here's an extract from a previous examiner's report that explains what this really means. The most common remark made by examiners with respect to the theory exam was the lack of critical thinking and analysis exhibited in these papers. It is important to realise that within the MW examination, many questions do not seek to just test a candidate's knowledge of a particular subject. Candidates are also required to show an opinion or make a value judgment. It isn't enough, for example, to simply state or describe what a particular producer does in one region, but this information needs to be used analytically and be part of an overall larger argument. Candidates must continue to work hard at developing this particular skill, as it is vital for passing the MW exam. Or, to put it another way, this is exactly what they mean in the introduction to every single examiner's report for the last 20 years, when they say, too much description, not enough discussion. They are not just looking for knowledge. What they want to see is an application of knowledge leading to an opinion. That is critical analysis. In summary, critical analysis is key to passing the MW theory exams. Knowledge is knowing a tomato is a fruit, not a vegetable. Wisdom is knowing not to put it in a fruit salad. The formula for unlocking the MW theory exams is theoretical or book knowledge, plus relevant examples, plus the use of topic-specific vocabulary or jargon, all employed in the service of critical analysis and critical thinking, equals a pass. It's not always easy to introduce critical analysis in paper 2, as the questions often require a list-type answer rather than discuss. However, the trick to introducing some critical analysis in paper 2 is to focus in on the costs and resources associated with the topic under discussion. So, for example, if a question was asking you to discuss the way a winemaker may adjust alcohol, show that you know in the real world this is much more likely to be done by simply blending tanks of different alcoholic strengths than the use of expensive RO machinery. This is the best way to show critical analysis in paper 2.
Water is a key resource, and we need to identify globally as an industry and as a province assertive strategies in order to assure the long-term supply of water for our homes and for our vineyards.
We live in a desert, so we depend on water for growing vines and to produce wine. That's why we are paying special attention to that, and we are studying how to better use the water, the little water that we have, how to use it more precisely. In Mendoza, the main source of water is snow and the glaciers that we have in the Andes. We cannot count on rain because we have an average of 300 millimeters every year. And so we depend on the water that melts from the Andes, and that water comes to each vineyard in a superficial water by channels and also in the aquifers, in the underground water. So we can have access to both depending on the vineyard and the region. And it is regulated, the quantity of water that we have is regulated by a government institution called Departamento General de Irrigación. And it regulates the quantity of water that each user have depending on the number of hectares, because water is really important for us, but because it's a scarce resource nowadays in Mendoza. We have a great focus on managing water very precisely.
En Mendoza llueven alrededor de 200 milímetros al año. Los desafíos que se nos presentan con un clima desértico principalmente está relacionado al agua, a la escasez de agua. Básicamente necesitamos hacer un gran esfuerzo para usar la cantidad mínima y poder cultivar un viñedo. Mendoza no podría ser una zona productiva sin riego. Las soluciones que hemos encontrado en el uso del agua es desarrollar un método para ser eficientes en el uso de este recurso. Segundo, el clima o la marcha climática, es decir, medir la evapotranspiración con estaciones meteorológicas ubicadas en cada viñedo. Y tercero, medir las plantas. Las soluciones para el manejo de agua es un método que hemos desarrollado para riego por goteo de precisión. Este método consiste básicamente en medir 3 factores: la capacidad de almacenaje de agua del suelo, el clima y las plantas. Para medir la capacidad de agua del suelo, desarrollamos una correlación entre un mapa de electroconductividad y fórmulas de capacidad de almacenaje de agua de suelo. Eso nos permitió saber en cada lugar del viñedo cuánta agua se almacena. Para medir el consumo de agua de los viñedos en base al clima, contamos con estaciones meteorológicas en cada viñedo donde es muy importante conocer la evapotranspiración, la temperatura y la humedad ambiental. Para medir el consumo de agua de la planta, utilizamos imágenes satelitales y usamos un filtro de índice verde para conocer el estado vegetativo y así saber el consumo y la transpiración de las mismas. Usamos otra herramienta, se llama cámara de Scholander. Esta herramienta nos permite saber el estado hídrico de las plantas en el momento de tomar la muestra.
Drip irrigation, you can save up to 50 or 60% water if you compare to flooding irrigation, especially when you have 5% of slope in a surface like this. But then if you add precision viticulture to the drip irrigation project, you can save even more, and you can save like 80% of the water because you are adding specifically the amount of water that every single block needs depending on the soil and where the roots are exploring. So that's a very, very important solution for this, drone problems.
En Trivento contamos con el 98% de nuestros viñedos con riego por goteo. Este sistema de riego bien mantenido te permite tener un 90% de eficiencia. Con un riego por goteo obtenemos podemos tener un 90% de eficiencia versus un riego tradicional en el cual la eficiencia puede estar alrededor del 50%. El riego de precisión también te permite desarrollar o llevar a cabo en tus viñedos una restricción hídrica controlada. Esta restricción controlada buscamos someter a nuestras plantas en un cierto periodo de tiempo acotado a un estrés hídrico, buscando con ello ahorrar agua y dar un salto en la calidad.
We've been using our irrigation system to save water for more than 15 years. That might sound silly, but it is possible. We've been building up our humus percentage in our soil for the last 15 years, and so far we've been able to cut down our water usage by 50% in that time. Every extra percentage of humus in the soil helps you save up to 300,000 litres of water per hectare. So it's quite a lot of water we can save just by increasing our humus, and therefore we can actually be more sustainable while using irrigation system.
Wir haben seit ungefähr 30 Jahren eine eigene Kläranlage im Betrieb, mit der wir unsere ca. 3 Millionen Liter Kellereiabwasser vorklären. Danach wird das Wasser aktuell in die Kläranlage der Gemeinde abgeleitet. Aber die Gemeinde hat auch letztes Jahr entschieden, dass sie ihre eigene Kläranlage erneuern will, sodass wir als Zukunftsprojekt das Wasser hier in der Region halten können. Viele unserer Nachbargemeinden haben entschieden, das Wasser komplett abzugeben. Das ist für uns ein vorgelagerter Prozess, um dann irgendwann das Wasser auch hier noch mehr speichern zu können.
I like to look at even the simplest of solutions. And one example that I often give people, because I think it's a cheap way to actually control water wastage, and that is the dead man's gun on the end of a hose. So often as we wash the floors, wash the tanks, we leave the hose running and you have to walk back to the wall in order to switch off the tap. Of course, if you get a telephone call en route, you tend to get there slower. Water is being wasted. But for the matter of less than €100, you can put an industrial gun on the end of that, which means only water is being delivered at the moment it's needed. Put down the hose, water is no longer being wasted. Simple solution, but add that up over the course of an entire harvest, it's an awful lot of litres of water that is being saved. Every single litre makes a difference.
Last year, we made a working group with 8 important wineries in the area. We come from the Rhone Valley to the South France, and we will discuss about energy in a few days, and we talked about water last year. The aim of the group is to share best practices about development and sustainable development. For example, last year we talked about water waste and water, and we did use the water-reducing guns to clean our tank. Not all the 8 wineries was using those houses, but now we know that the 8 wineries are using the water-reducing gun. It's allowed us to improve the cleaning efficiency and to reduce our water consumption. The water-reducing guns are really easy to use because it's just a regular hose and you put a gun that reduces the water pressure and that's it. We have a water waste project currently about the water used in the filter. In our winery, we use cross-flow filter that use a lot of water to clean itself. The water used to clean the filter may contain a little quantity of chemical product. That's the reason why we want to analyze and assess this water. Currently, we use this wastewater to spread it on an alfalfa field and olive grove to provide to the soil nutrient. But in the future, if the law change, we can think to reuse this water to clean the floor or perhaps to use it in the vineyard. Even if it's not a huge quantity of water, using it in the vineyard will be a great part to achieve circular economy.
And water is going to be an increasing issue all around the world as we look at vineyards and indeed wineries. Wineries tend to use a huge amount of water. In our company, we'll take water, we'll take water, we will recover it, we'll treat it, we'll reuse water a second time for washing floors, as opposed to, so first time would be to wash the tanks, then you'll recover that, treat it, and then use it to wash the floors, thereby saving on the amount of water that we've got.
The use of real-life examples is indispensable to Master of Wine students. So here are the golden rules for the use of examples in your MW essays. They have to be original, relevant, global, accurate, specific, multidisciplinary, insightful, and current. Don't forget, there are 4 more films in the Sustainability Countdown to 2030 series. Study smart, stress less.
So our journey down the True Zero Waste path began in 2014 when we were certified as the first True Zero Waste winery in the world. And over the course of the past 10 years, which we've recently just hit our 10-year anniversary being a certified True Zero Waste winery, we've diverted over 46,000 tons of material from the landfill, and that's about a 98% diversion rate. Our True Zero Waste certification is achieved by following 4 different paths for all of the materials that we use here on site. We follow the standard reduce, reuse, and recycle platform, where we reduce as many inputs as we can prior to bringing materials on site. We reuse what materials that we can. If there's grape stakes that can be reused in a different vineyard when we switch out vineyard stock. And then we also recycle as much of our recyclable components that we can, and that includes plastics, metals, and glass. The 4th avenue is that we compost as much of our pumice that comes out of the crush season each year. We pretty much compost 100% of that in large compost piles, and once it's composted, we refeed that to the vineyards at the beginning of the next year as soil amendments.
We generate around 2,000 tons of material in our wineries that is rejected from organic waste that come from the grape crushing, plastic that come from the bottling line, bottle scrap, cardboard scrap from the filling machines, and different packaging that we get from all the enological supplies that we use. How we handle them? Well, the classic approach to that is separating those streams where they come from, straight where they come from, teach the people there, separate it through different materials so you can recover the value. Find someone that wants that. For example, most of our organic waste goes to Derivados Vínicos, that is a company that uses wines byproducts to create, for example, tartaric acid or alcohol. Then we buy back the tartaric acid, so we have one supplies that come from a raw material that we produce in a winery. The plastic goes to a stream that then gets recycling, the bottle, the cardboard as well. However, in the last 3 years, we have developed a zero waste initiative where we are not only looking to 2030 to reach 100% of this material, avoiding going to a wasteland. Right now we have achieved our first goal, that is 97%, and we're very happy about that. But also we want to create conscience for our workers, so we have different internal campaigns to teach our workers to reply what they do in work in their home.
The reduction of waste byproducts has always been very important, and one way that plays a role today still is in our barrel sourcing. We've been working for upwards of 20 years with the Sauvin family in France that produces oak barrels from French oak. In the barrel production, there is a standard of how the wood barrel needs to look on the outside. So a lot of staves that would otherwise be perfectly appropriate for barrel production get culled in the quality control process due to their visual appearance. So about 4% of the staves that are produced for barrel production get rejected due to visual blemishes. Now we've been working with the Sauvin family in sourcing barrels that are made with those culled staves, the appearance will be slightly affected, but in our belief, appearance is secondary to the quality. The quality of the barrel will be top-notch, as good as any other barrel we receive from the Savin family, and by sourcing these barrels, we're able to, and the Savin family is able to reduce the waste, a perfectly good staves.
Los residuos principales que generamos en la bodega son residuos sólidos, tales como cartón, vidrio, plástico, metales y orgánicos. Al relleno sanitario no enviamos casi ningún residuo. Reciclamos más del 97% de nuestros residuos. A nuestros residuos orgánicos los transformamos en compost que luego son utilizados en nuestros viñedos.
Para lo cual, por ejemplo, reciclamos o compostamos el 97% de nuestros residuos y luego ese compost, el cual logramos a través del compostaje del 100% de nuestros residuos orgánicos de la vinificación, es utilizado en nuestros propios viñedos para generar esta tan ansiada economía circular.
So our biofiltro system here at Bonterra Organic Estates is a water treatment system. Unlike most other conventional water treatment systems, it uses worms and bacteria to treat the winery waste effluent that we generate. Previously, we used aeration ponds to treat the effluent until the point that we could land apply it to remove the BOD and the TSS and the TDS from the water until it was cleaned up. That's a fairly energy-intensive process. And so we've partnered with Biofiltro, which is a company out of Santiago in Chile, and they have a unique patented BITA system that uses worms. We like to call it a worm farm, although the heavy lifting of the treatment system is really the bacteria that sit below the worms in one of the layers. What previously took us 4 to 6 weeks in aerobic pond cleanup of our effluent now takes 4 hours for the water to sift down through the worms and the bacteria and to come out virtually clean enough to land apply. But essentially, we have reduced our energy input with this system by about 50%. The biofiltro system consists of several layers. The top layer is a layer of very fine wood mulch, and then that is followed maybe, I don't know, 6 to 12 inches of wood mulch on the top layer, and that's really the home for the worms. And then that's followed by some larger wood chip layers, about 3 to 4 feet of wood chip layers, and that's really the home for the bacteria, again, where the heavy lifting and the real breakdown of the wastewater constituents happens, the biological changes from sugars to smaller components that are okay for land application. And then a final layer at the bottom of rock and plastic pallets to aid in the removal of the treated effluent from the system and let it flow out to our holding ponds. So that top layer of worms, which is really where a lot of the interest is, there's millions and billions of worms in these 3 biofiltro beds that are here. The whole system itself is roughly 2/3 the size of a football field. So it's a fairly large area that we're using to treat the effluent. The system as a whole has a capacity of about 100,000 gallons per day. On an average day in the off-season, we will use between 20 and 60,000 gallons of water, mainly to rinse tanks, things of that sort, sanitize equipment. This technology has been used in a number of different industries. Bonterra Organic Estates was the first to use it in a much broader application here, a much larger system. We were the first North American winery to use it at scale, at this scale that we see here.
Progress on environmental initiatives in wineries often take place behind the scenes and are not activities that many producers will necessarily advertise on their websites. When looking to gather examples of energy use, emission reductions, water saving, waste recycling, and general aspects of resource reduction and mitigation, there is no substitute to visiting wine regions and having face-to-face discussions with the people making these decisions. Increasingly, these people may not even be the viticulturalists or winemakers, as larger companies are investing in specialized sustainability managers and research scientists. As well as having concrete real-world examples, knowing the units, measurements, costs and savings is crucial to passing paper 2. The use of topic-specific vocabulary shows authority. It's not emphasised nearly enough in the MW education programme that those students who employ the technical words and phrases associated with the topic under discussion have a much better chance of convincing the examiners that they know what they're talking about and ultimately a better chance of passing. The use of topic-specific vocabulary demonstrates to the examiners that you know how a professional in the topic under discussion would talk to a fellow professional in the same field. In other words, you know the jargon. And it's knowing the jargon just as much as having the relevant examples that will get you over the line in the MW theory exam. A tag cloud for an essay on sustainability in paper 2 could include the following words or phrases: carbon dioxide equivalent, CO2e, carbon accounting, scopes 1, 2, 3, decarbonisation, energy efficiency, green energy, water footprint, aerobic and anaerobic water treatment, photovoltaic panels, solar panels, upcycling, circular economy, true zero waste, rainwater harvesting, environmental management system, upstream and downstream value chain, ISO 14001, ISO 14064.
We extract from soil, extract from people, continue to extract, and it's gotten us to a place in society where there's a lot of challenges: climate, people, poverty, right? And so with the regenerative organic approach, it's really how can we strengthen and how can we bring a more holistic and maybe healthful view to how we treat people, how we interact with the business. Right? So the business must make a profit, but it also must leave the people and the place better than it started. I'd say one of the biggest barriers to scale is the human mind, right? It's the paradigm that has to shift. We are the ones that limit our own capacity and our own growth, we as humans. And we all have a part to play, whether we're producers, farmers, consumers, media, whatever our part is or our many parts are, we all have a part to play to continue to kind of move the needle, you know, pull those levers that we can to create more resilient systems.
We are Tablas Creek Vineyard. We specialize in producing Rhone varietal grapes and blends, from the grapes traditional to the Châteauneuf-du-Pape region.
We are Terrazas de los Andes. We specialize in producing Malbec wines. we are Famille Perrin. We are producing fruits, and with that we try to make wine. Grenache, Mourvèdre, Syrah, Counoise, Terre Noire, Vaccarès, Muscardin, Roussanne, Picardin, Bourboulenc, and few more.
We are Catena Zapata. We specialize in producing high elevation, high quality mountain Malbec, Cabernet Sauvignon, and Chardonnay wines.
We are Weingut Heitlinger and Weingut Burg Ravensburg. We produce 100% estate-grown, still and sparkling wine, all biodynamic, from Pinot Gris, Pinot Blanc, Chardonnay, Auxerrois, Blaufränkisch, and also Riesling.
We are Gergich Hills Estate. We are producing wine grapes to turn them into beautiful wines.
We are Bodega Argento. We are specialized in produce organic wines from terroir places, mainly Malbec, Cabernet Franc, and Chardonnay.
We are Taylor's Port. We have, for the last 332 years, been producers of port wine, where we specialize primarily in quality port wine.
We are Bonterra Organic Estates. We specialize in producing wines made with regenerative organic certified grapes.
Somos Trivento. Nos especializamos en Malbec.
At the estate, we have many grape varieties, Riesling, Pinot Gris, Gewürztraminer, Chardonnay, Auxerrois, Pinot Blanc, Pinot Noir, and Muscat.
We are Fürstlich Castellsche Domäne. We produce mainly white wines, and our main varietal is Silvaner that we've been cultivating for 365 years.
The favorite part of my job is being able to get up out of my desk and walk into this property.
During the bud break, because it's always magic.
We are always with new challenges. We have always new things to study.
Cuando trabajo junto con mis compañeros, conjunto y terminamos un trabajo perfecto y sin ningún problema. Es lo que más me gusta.
Seeing every day the grapevine growing. I love to see the whole cycle of the vineyards.
To bring the wine that we craft here at Mendoza to be discovered all around the world.
Es gratificante pensar que mi trabajo tiene un impacto real en el futuro de mucha gente.
I try to find people who are experts and who love what they're doing, and I have quite a few of those, and that makes me very happy and also very confident for the future.